Chapter 541, Ghost 7, Furious Black. The Abyss mode referred to the situation when the players encountered teams of monsters in the dungeons that were from the other verse. For ordinary players, the encounter would be a disaster. It also meant a challenge. Most of the Abyss demons invading this space were relatively low-leveled. After consuming lots of energy to break through the space to land in the dungeons, they could be killed by a well-coordinated team of ordinary players who were strong. But now, only a few players had finished the awakening mission. Most of the players hadn't passed the mechanical bull dungeon yet and thus wouldn't initiate a battle with Abyss demons. At this moment, Xuanhuan had gone online to make the Sky outfit set, leaving Vice Academy Master Xiao and the others of the Heavenly Academy to watch from behind in confusion. Suddenly, Vice Academy Master Xiao saw a huge altar with a statue of a demon head appear on Elder Yu's screen. The demon head on the altar had crimson eyes and 4 horns. Even from the screen, he could sense the streak of strong evil aura emitting from it. "What's this?" Vice Academy Master Xiao yelled in alarm. "Demon altar." Elder Yu looked grim. "It seems like someone has encountered the Abyss demons. I'm watching it on the live stream." Live stream? The people standing behind him sounded puzzled. "Yeah?" Elder Yu explained with a grim expression, "It's like the distance image transmission spell. We can sit and watch whatever they do through this spiritual artifact." The name of the live stream room was, An Encounter with an Abyss Demon, Uncovering the Truth About Demons. It was the live stream of a player of Xuanhuan City who was about level 30. He and his teammates were being attacked by an Abyss demon. An Abyss demon? As a Vice Academy Master of Heavenly Academy, he had seen many things, but he had never heard of such things before. "What's this thing?" They intently stared at the altar on Elder Yu's screen. Beside the altar, a horrid shadow engulfed in flames gradually solidified from its initial vague form. Even from the screen, they had a clear view of it. It was a human-shaped demon that was as tall as 3 people. It had huge horns on its head, and its grayish-white skin looked as hard as steel. It emitted blazing flames, and the players could smell the nose-piercing odor of sulfur even from the distance. The horrifying high temperature turned the moisture on the land into water vapor, making this demon look like a living volcano that was moving. The players on the live stream felt a burning presence rushed toward them as soon as they got close. The horrid high temperature roasted their skin to a red tone, and their HPs were dropping continuously. Although it was clear that this demon didn't run, it got close to the players with a few casual steps. It hadn't attacked yet, but the players already felt suffocated by its horrifying suppressive aura. This. Vice Academy Master Xiao and the elders who came with him looked dazed with disbelief in their eyes. How can it be? Is it really a demon? As if it were answering these questions, the demon waved its hand, and a dark red magic array suddenly lit up in the sky. In the next moment, a stream of fire shot across the sky. A small meteorite crashed onto the ground with vicious force. The horrifying shockwave destroyed almost everything around it. One player couldn't dodge it in time and was buried under the meteorite and turned into ashes by the burning flames around the meteorite. Among frantic screams, a gunner took out the anti-tank cannon from his storage space anxiously and fired. Swoosh! A sharp, whistling noise tore through the air, but the demon moved its body, and the missile went past it. He dodged it? That player looked at the scene dumbfoundedly. The demon seemed to pay little attention to the players. It was absorbing the energy from the air to replenish the power that it had depleted while traveling through space. Many wisps of fire gathered around the demon, like a big fireball. They floated around the demon and then shot toward the nearby players like a ghost. Soon, the demon pushed out its palms, and a huge cloud of flames flew toward the gunner. Meanwhile, it let out a long chant, and more strange red magic arrays gathered in the sky. "Run! Quick, run!" Meteorites crashed down from the sky like rain. Even though they were watching from the live stream from the screen, the viewers felt a sense of suffocation from this horrifying scene. Many small meteorites crashed down, filling the ground with huge craters. By now, all the players who came to explore this place had died. What's this monster? Vice Academy Master Xiao yelled in shock. Our cultivation world is on the brink of destruction already, and such a horrifying monster appeared as well. How can cultivators like us handle such a situation? Desperate thoughts filled the newcomers' heads while they wondered how they could survive. At this moment, someone yelled, "The shop owner is going to challenge the Abyss Demon." The shop owner turned on the live stream in room XX001127. What? Someone dares to mess with this kind of monsters? The Vice Academy Masters and Elders of the Heavenly Academy who had just returned from the Sky Relic were shocked to hear that someone would challenge such powerful monsters. Soon, they saw Elder Yu entering another live stream room. Sure enough, a man wearing a dark blue robe with a dazzling slim short sword sparkling with magic light came to an altar. The location was similar to the place where the previous altar was at. It seemed to be the same altar. The abyss in the Behemoth map. On the huge platform were all kinds of strange buildings and many corpses. Except for these, there was only the strange young man with the short sword. The shop owner didn't buy the sky outfit set. His weapon looks very special. The viewers talked among themselves. This is a level 40 pink short sword, teaching of Gora, swiftness. The shop owner has reinforced it to level 12. The shop owner's equipment is superb. Wasn't he afraid that this godly short sword would be shattered during the reinforcement process? Meanwhile, is this young man crazy? Vice Academy Master Xiao exclaimed in shock while staring at the screen intently. What spiritual spell did this young man use? How come I've never seen them before? The skeleton minions around the broken altar were cleared up. On the screen, Fang Chi had used afterimage of K-Eagle and Phantasmal Step. Then, the gloomy shadow of a demon appeared behind him. Then, a red, vicious, ghost-like demon shadow came near the altar. Kazan. The cultivators who had just returned from the Sky Relic had never seen such things before. They held their breaths and stared at the screen without blinking. Soon, they saw that the demon's shadow turned distinct before the altar. Fang Chi walked swiftly in the red array and came near the shadow. He chanted lightly, and the demons came at his summon. The green demon shadow, hazy-eyed Brahman. The purple demon shadow, Plague Rasa. The icy blue demon shadow, Ice Sire. As if it came from hell, a huge bone wing spread out from behind Fang Chi. In the darkness existed another vicious and distorted demon, the sixth demon color of Dark Flame. These demon shadows overlapped, almost turning this place into a death zone. The horrifying presences that they emitted seemed no less powerful compared to that of the Abyss Demon. By now, the shadow of the Abyss Demon had turned completely solid. It had completely entered this space from the void. What is this young man trying to do? The newcomers of the Heavenly Academy gaped at the scene. On top of them, the other viewers who were watching the live stream were also puzzled. In the next instant, Fang Chi stabbed his short sword into the overlapped ghost arrays with vicious force. The sky suddenly darkened, and the solid stone ground seemed to transform into a black swamp. In the pitch-black swamp, death ripples spread out as if something horrifying was taking shape inside. Vice Academy Master Xiao rubbed his eyes. What was he looking at? He saw a horrifying monster slowly rising from the swamp as if it were coming from a bottomless abyss. Only half of its head appeared, but it was so big that it filled the whole screen. What skill is this? How come I've never seen it before? It seems to be awakening. Soulbender's awakening. The viewers who were watching the live stream all yelled in astonishment. Awakening skill, summoning Ghost 7, Furious Black. Furious Black contained one of the negative emotions of humans. It was an ancient abyss monster formed by greed. It was heard that anyone who mastered the power of two demons could break the seal in the depths of the swamp and release Black. As an animal-type demon, it had a body much bigger than the behemoth. It usually slumbered in the death swamp created by the death god, and its responsibility was catching ghosts and imprisoning them in the swamp. The ghosts that it couldn't catch were called demons. Black hated the demons that it couldn't catch. Whenever it saw demons, it would want to swallow them. However, it never succeeded. The Great Zig, one of the first soulbenders, took use of this and summoned many demons to stand behind the enemies. Then, Black would be summoned and would swallow all the enemies. The viewers saw a huge mouth opening and swallowing everything on the ground. This person. How can such a powerful person exist in this world? Where's that demon? Vice Academy Master Xiao and the other elders gaped as they stared at the screen with turmoil in their minds. How can this person be so powerful? He can even summon such a horrifying monster to battle for him. How can anyone in the world be his match? A few minutes later, someone finally explained to them what games were. Hurry, let's go and buy membership cards. We'll adventure on the Arad continent too. Chapter 542, World Companionship, Number 1 Worldwide Martial Dao Conference. Since most equipment could be traded, the players could buy most of the equipment that they wanted in Dungeon Fighter Online with crystals. Ordinary players could use 2 to 3 characters to search for materials in the dungeons or accept missions in the city. Through these methods, they could earn money and buy all the equipment needed for one account. Many items dropped in the dungeons with low difficulty level were quite common, but it didn't mean that they were not needed. It was why the avid ordinary players of this game didn't lag behind too much. As for the advanced players who had surpassed level 50, learned the awakening skills, and were equipped with level 50 equipment all over, they were not left with nothing to do. For example, Xuanhuan had finished the awakening mission, but he was still trying to finish a mission named Terror Rock Weapon. Then, he casually turned on the live stream. The elders and the Vice Academy Masters of Heavenly Academy, who had just entered the game and learned only a few skills, could only alleviate their eagerness by watching others' live streams. Terror rocks were the special magical minerals on Terror Star. Since this rock contained magical power, weapons made with Terror rock were craved by each adventurer. On Xuanhuan's screen, the difficulty level shown on the upper right corner was Master. Right now, he was alone, and there were no teammates with him. His subclass showed on the screen was no longer Blade Master but Grand Master. Grand Masters were swordsmen who had mastered the ultimate level of Slayer sword techniques. They had awakened after breaking through the threshold of the Slayer sword techniques. Now, they had mastered powerful Tempest and Iron Strike. Xuanhuan's strength as a Grand Master was obviously much greater than the previous Blade Master. While waving his light saber, he could cut open anything as if they were pieces of tofu with this radiant sword beam. He can fight in the mechanical bull dungeon alone. This guy is super powerful. This elder had just entered the game and didn't know much. He didn't even know the name of this class, and he just yelled in surprise with widened eyes. Hurry, come and watch this guy. Vice Academy Master Xiao's eyes opened wide. Hearing his exclamation, others looked over immediately. On the other side, Song Qingfeng was doing a live stream as well. He was a fighter who was wearing a pair of black practice pants. Is he a warrior? This guy is going to fight an abyss demon. With a mystical demon breaking rock in his hand, Song Qingfeng was walking in the forbidden shrine in the Behemoth, a dungeon for players above level 30. A huge demon altar appeared before him. Different from the altar in Fang Chi's live stream, this demon statue was bald and had no horns. Then, a huge demon slowly appeared from the void and it said in a gloomy voice, "Little guy, did you summon me?" The overwhelming demonic presence from the abyss spread out, strong enough to suffocate people. With an explosive shout, leg shadows enveloped in flames appeared on the screen. Without sparing a glance at the demon, he immediately returned to the city. Damn it, another bald one. The bald one is the weakest abyss demon, and it almost never drops equipment or items. Vice Academy Master Xiao and the others looked at the demon that couldn't be more dead now. It had been so arrogant a moment ago. My goodness. How come these people are so strong? Look, this guy went to challenge demons again after the first time. He battles the demons every day to improve his combat techniques and martial Dao. No wonder he's so strong. Other people are doing the same. Another elder clicked open a live stream room named Royal Princess of Darjin. Look, this woman is also battling a demon. Another elder was watching in the live stream room named Second Prince of Darjin. This guy said that he has battled abyss demons 20 times today. Guys, Look at this live stream room. On Vice Academy Master Xiao's screen was a live stream room named Abstract Analysis of How to Get Pink Equipment and Items from the Abyss Demons. Right now, they were talking about the topics such as increasing the drop rate by hitting the head with the last blow and how to enter the abyss to have a higher possibility of encountering a multi-horned demon. They are even sharing their experience in battling these demons with others. They are even challenging stronger multi-horned demons. I admire their ambitions. They were thrilled. One day, we'll also be as powerful as them. When that day comes, yeah, Vice Academy Master Xiao, we will work harder. Another elder said passionately, our cultivation world still has hope. Let's team up. We can go to Grand Flores and level up today. These low-leveled mages and slayers with trash equipment finally came to Hendon Maya. Meanwhile, the dojo had started the division ranking system. In the past, the players usually had practice matches with friends as a way of relaxation. In this sense, the dojo had been a place for players to spend their leisure time after they battled with monsters in the dungeons. But now, the situation had changed. At this moment, two figures hiding in a corner were still trying to fight the mechanical bull. They intended to make weapons with Terror Rock first. Suddenly, they received mail. What's this? The Avenger immediately entered the game interface and opened an exquisite envelope. These words were written on the letter: "The gate of glory is about to open. Come to the #1 worldwide Martial Dao Conference to obtain your own glory." Martial Dao Conference? Martial meant warriors, and Dao would represent cultivators who devoted their lives searching for heavenly Dao. But what did this #1 worldwide Martial Dao Conference mean? The Avenger smirked and said, I've lived for countless years. Why would I compete with you little guys for small benefits and fame? The moment he said it, he suddenly saw the rewards listed on the letter. Dazzling advancement contract. Can perfectly advance to the subclass. Although they could learn many skills and spiritual spells in the game and use them in the real world, some very special things in all the subclasses couldn't be learned, including the demons of soulbenders, and the creatures that the summoners could summon. As for Avengers, the demonic power of this subclass couldn't be obtained by learning. Everyone knew how powerful the skills after the first awakening were, and these skills including Ghost 7, Furious Black Witch Fang Chi had summoned in the previous live stream. If they could perfectly advance into the subclasses in the real world, did it mean that they could gain this power too? After exchanging a look, they immediately clicked on the link in the letter. We'll participate. They quickly entered the registration information. Meanwhile, the esports competition had officially begun. Chapter 543, A Bigger Arena. In this esports competition, there were two games, StarCraft and Dungeon Fighter Online. These two mysterious figures clicked on the link in the game interface and saw two options for registration. One was the F1 World Companionship, and the other was the StarCraft World Championship Series. Although the people in this world didn't quite understand these names for the competition, they didn't think too much about them since this whole event was called the #1 Worldwide Martial Dao Conference. Besides them, all the players of the Geocity Shop and Half City Shop had received the letter through their QQ or the system in the games. After the registration, they would enter the ladder ranking competition in StarCraft or the division ranking system in the dojo of Dungeon Fighter Online for the initial selection stage. After all, the previous Diablo 2 and the King of Fighters competitions happened when the players in the two shops numbered in the several thousands, almost reaching 10,000. Even the number of players who had bought membership cards in GeoShop had surpassed the combined number of players of the GeoCity Shop and the Half City Shop participating in the previous competitions. At that time, the shops had only players from the UI Taoist Alliance and a few forces in the Morning Star Sea Realm. Now, the players came from Yundian Upper Realm, all the major factions, and even the prosperous spiritual state. The players even included the people of the Ultimate West Realm who had come from the distant snow mountains in the far west and excelled in martial arts. The players also included the members of the most ancient families such as Xuanhuan and King Qiu. All of them might enter this competition. For the original players in the GeoCity Shop and Half City Shop, This was a gala that they had never witnessed before. Watching the players talking animatedly about the event of the shop, Fang Chi realized that the previous competitions were child's play compared with this event, which was grander and much bigger. In the Geocity shop, Nalan Mingsu sat on a couch with a bottle of Coke in her hand, while wearing a snow-white robe. Her ice statue-like face looked even more charming. She had received the message through QQ on her communication jade. As someone who had won more than one championship, she didn't feel any pride in the first places that she had gotten in the past. She had a vague feeling that the past competitions were nothing compared to the current F1 World Companionship and StarCraft World Championship series. In the past, she had been so familiar with the participants that she had a clear idea who would encounter who in the matches and even who would enter the finals. She could even guess some of the results. But now, the situation had changed. She didn't even know what kind of opponents she would meet and where they might be from. Each shop had players from different forces. It was quite possible that she might meet a genius who she had never seen before. In fact, even Fang Chi didn't know about the top-tier masters in the shops. For example, the Spitfire player with the ID Masters whom Fang Chi had encountered in the game was someone he had never heard of before. However, this man had worked well in the team. He had ordinary equipment but had a very high level. It meant that he was a master. Nalan Mingsu had never had this feeling before. She felt that she was facing a truly unknown world and a real challenge. Different from other players, the earliest players in Geocity had heard the legendary stories about esports competitions from Mr. Fang. When Nalan Mingsu won the first championship, she had wished that someday she would stand the tallest, not among a small group of people but among the players from all over the world as told in the stories. Meanwhile, the people of the Ultimate West Realm had also gathered in the shop. The cultivators of the spiritual state glared at them with dark expressions, since these people were aggressive in grabbing seats and were quite arrogant. The worst one was Gabriel. After lying in bed for a long time, he had recovered from his injuries, but his personality hadn't improved as he didn't learn a lesson. Look at what this guy is doing now. Elder Yu's face was twisted with anger while he looked at the game interface. In The Legend of Mewtwo, people had to go to the World Channel for The Legend of Mewtwo on QQ if they wanted their words to be seen by all other players. However, Dungeon Fighter Online was different. It had an extra interface in the game for this function and no longer required QQ. The players could choose to attach a gadget named Magic Communicator on their arms or on their storage bags. This gadget could record some information in the game, including the information about items and equipment acquired, adding friends, teams, and game announcements. If someone spoke on it, the messages could be seen by all the players in the game. However, not everyone could speak using this method. To talk on it, players must buy an item named Magic Horn, and the players could only talk once with each horn. That was why few people would talk on it unless they were announcing something very important. Usually, the players would turn on the alert function of this gadget so that they could receive important information and updates. However, on this interface, a player with the ID demonic god Gabriel said, "Who was that? Who was so arrogant? Come on, talk to me. Why aren't you talking? You dared to kick me out of the team but can't afford to pay crystals to speak here." He had posted several similar messages. Finally, a player with the ID True Dragon Hermit couldn't bear it anymore. "Don't ever team up with this guy." When an abyss demon appeared in the dungeon, he ignored orders and did whatever he wanted, dragging his teammates to death with him. Demonic God Gabriel said, "You guys are so weak, you should feel honored that I was willing to carry you. How dare you accuse me of messing around." Then, messages on the Magic Communicator almost flooded the screen. They argued about topics from dungeon fight to crystals until, "Didn't you say that you're not short in crystals? Come on, using the horns." 320. "I'm not afraid of you." 320. 321. 321. Demonic God Gabriel posted, 322. "Granddaddy has many magic horns." True Dragon Hermit replied, Do you think you have endless crystals? 322. Continue. Not only cultivators of the spiritual state but the cultivators and warriors in other shops as well had dark expressions on their faces. Are they too damn morons? 1 hour later. 3264. Any more horns? They had spent thousands of crystals on horns. How come they are still doing it? The cultivators and warriors playing Dungeon Fighter Online were no longer angry. Instead, they began to entertain themselves by watching this drama. The magic horn costs 1 crystal each, right? Yeah, so expensive. With so many crystals, they could have made a sky outfit set. At this moment, even Liu Pieling's face had turned dark, furious that Gabriel was so stupid as to enter a competition of buying magic horns. He glanced at the brown-haired young man sitting near him and found that the latter had no intention to stop this moronic competition. The guy's crazy. While cussing silently, Liu Pieling shook his head, clicked open the link to F1 World Companionship, and registered. Chapter 544, The Huge Crack in the Heavenly Abyss. C. Fang Chi was looking at the system interface. In the short time after Dungeon Fighter Online was released, the revenue that the shops earned had surpassed all the total income of the shop before its release. Of course, this sum included the sales of other games, but the income from Dungeon Fighter Online accounted for the bulk of it. By now, Mr. Fang's fortune had increased from a few million to a bit over 10 million crystals. Quite rich even compared with the big families in the spiritual state which were fraught with grandmasters. On one hand, Mr. Fang had been recruiting more employees, making plans, and managing the shops to make everything work smoothly and more professionally. On the other hand, he got ready to implement some ideas which had seemed far-fetched with limited funds, now that he had a big fortune left after everyday spending on spiritual elixirs and games. He could put these ideas into reality. Soon, a group chat named Official Esports Broadcast Platform was established on QQ. Sir, what are you up to? What's this esports broadcast? Since Xdaolf, the Liuyan Daoist Palace Master, hadn't gotten online yet, Sudanji, the youngest and most able elder of Liuyan Daoist Palace, was pulled into the group. Nonplussed, she asked, "Can anyone who came explain it to me?" Husky's puzzled face. Vice Academy Master Jiang Hao of the Heavenly Academy replied, "I'm new here too." Tanksu Daoist from the Yimu Daoist Palace of the Morning Star Sea Realm chimed in, "I still don't understand it." The Xichi Spiritual Master from the Nanhua faction said, "It seems to be a method to broadcast the matches in the competition with spiritual spells such as distance visual transmission spell. This way, the people who can't watch the matches in the shops can watch them in other places." Andrew, an elder of the Ultimate West Realm, said, "I think it's a way to transmit our dashing images back home. This way, the members of our families can appreciate our performances in battles." After Mr. Fang's prior explanation, the cultivators and warriors began to discuss it in the group chat animatedly. Sutanji said, "In short, this broadcast will show the matches in different locations so that the disciples who can't come to the shop will be able to watch them too. In my opinion, the audience is not limited to the disciples of our faction." Huang Putao, the Castellan of Black Dragon City, typed while laughing, "I think I can use this spiritual spell in the air above Black Dragon Square inches my city. Any cultivator and warrior can watch the competition." "Oh!" Sudanji exclaimed and said, "It means that the whole world will see my excellent performance if I enter the competition?" Understanding finally dawned on them that the champions of this competition would be truly standing on the top of the world. What? The competition will be broadcasted to the world? In the Geocity shop, an independent cultivator with a disheveled appearance was working hard to upgrade his division level. Hearing this news, he almost jumped up in excitement. He had reached Tier 7. After a few more tiers, he would reach the Supreme Division, the lowest division required to stand out of the initial selection. He was an ordinary player, but his equipment was not bad even though he didn't spend much money on anything besides the monthly Black Diamond membership. He had obtained his equipment with hard work by taking people to past dungeons with his big accounts and acquiring materials with his small accounts. The #1 worldwide Martial Dao conference will be broadcasted to the whole world. In the half-city shop, a warrior sat in a corner, and the character on his screen was engulfed by an intense bloody aura, Hellbringer. He waved his huge, blood-covered long blade which was long enough to be considered 2 sabers. The long saber that condensed horrifying blood aura crashed down with earth-shattering force, and a thick beam of fire shot up into the sky. The enemy before him was instantly burned to ashes. At this moment, he was already in the Supreme Division in the game. He was an unknown warrior in the Morning Star Sea realm. There were many warriors like him in the Morning Star Sea realm where warriors were regarded lower than cultivators ever since the ancient times. Many of them had talent, but their talent had been restricted by their dire environment. With clenched fists, he stared at the message on the screen intently. In the past, he had tried to increase his strength and temper his body mechanically like everyone else, not knowing what the future might hold and spending his life in ignorance. He counted himself lucky that he could play games in the shop. This was the most truthful reflection of their lives. However, each person had a seed buried deep inside. For some of them, the seeds had died under the heavy pressure of fate. For others, the seeds would crawl out wherever a tiny crack appeared and would sprout out seedlings. At this moment, a voice shouted in his heart, "Go out. Show yourself to the world." Besides the people in the Jua City shop and the Half-City shop, the players in the Yuan Yang City shop were also thrilled. Among the large number of players, many of the earliest players had awakened and surpassed level 50. Some players had developed into gaming masters, and they were not limited to the people who Mr. Fang was familiar with. Silently, they had practiced their skills and strengthened themselves in the dojo without attracting any attention. Only veteran players who spent long hours in the dojo had encountered them. No one knew their real names, but their plain IDs carried all the hard work that they had done. Meanwhile, on the shore of the heavenly abyss sea, 2 pairs of deep eyes stared at the turbulent waves in the ocean. The turbid world is like a boat, sending us to the other shore while all creatures vanish. The messy ocean winds blew up the edge of that figure's black robe, revealing a stretch of ashen-colored skin which looked quite inhuman. The space of that place in the heavenly abyss sea is getting more and more unstable. The voice from the sky said with self-mockery, "After scheming for so many years, we might not be able to reach the other shore. I can feel that they." In the depth of the heavenly abyss sea, the mountain-like mist scattered and revealed a vague shape of a pitch-black crack. Inside the crack was a vast and dark void. In the void floated an extremely grand and magnificent building that was as beautiful as an ancient celestial palace. In the palace, a pair of extremely cold and greedy eyes seemed to be staring at the blue sky and white clouds outside the crack. Chapter 545, I'll give you the gift of destruction. This ancient palace was very magnificent, and it was so huge that one couldn't see the end of it in one glance. It looked like a group of huge, rolling mountains, a small world, or even a huge fortress. It silently hovered in the void and was too huge to pass through the big crack in the space. The huge tower-shaped palace had 3 levels. The top level was a round array hovering above the rest of it. A foyer stood before it, acting as an invisible wall. The middle level was surrounded by many wondrous, engraved patterns and statues. It looked like a miraculous godly palace that mortals worshipped in legends. Behind the flowing pale golden lights, the center of the palace suddenly opened. In the next moment, golden clouds swarmed up while many square-shaped golden flying objects hovered in the air above the ocean outside the crack. The dazzling golden lights almost dyed the whole ocean golden. Well, this is really a boring world. A young man wearing silver armor stood on the strangely shaped flight spiritual artifact. With an arrogant expression, he studied the vast sky that was reflected on the surface of the water. His facial features looked old and strange. With 2 golden patterns between his brows, he looked mysterious and unworldly. Standing beside him was a man wearing a grand white robe and a square hat. Different from his companion, This man had only one golden pattern on his forehead. With a hook of his finger, a translucent cup with radiant colors rose and slowly flew to his hand as if it were lifted by a strange force. He lightly sniffed and seemed to detect the scent of the spiritual essence in the whole world. After savoring the scent, he snickered and said, "Only a bunch of ignorant monkeys are living here. They are even worse than low level. If the mission that our clan gave us is handling a group of monkeys who aren't even on the low level." He lightly swirled the crystal-like liquid in the cup and said with a chilly smile, "I'm afraid this journey will be quite boring." The man in the white robe asked respectfully, "Then, The other man waved his hand casually and said with a snicker, "Go and send them the message. Before the heaven-hiding palace passes the crack, we will have a good show before us." In the cottage on Purple Cloud Mountain of the Heavenly Academy, Old Academy Master Xuanhuan was talking with the Vice Academy Masters, elders of the Academy, and the ancient family masters about the esports competition broadcast. "Tang Family Master, what do you think?" "I think we can give this broadcast full support." "Yeah?" Wang Family Master said, "In fact, our families can hold similar competitions in the future. The broadcast has my full support. It's a good opportunity to show those little disciples in our families the abilities of masters from all over the world. This way, they won't be overconfident." While they were talking animatedly, thunder and lightning bolts suddenly appeared in the clear sky. "What's happening?" Xuanhuan's face turned grim. The arrays around the Heavenly Academy showed no response. "Who are they?" "They can easily dodge these protective and restriction arrays." Suddenly, as if a big hole was put into the sky, a huge palace appeared in the sky. The huge shadow of the palace hovered in the high sky, and it was surrounded by many pitch-black lightning bolts. It looked like a legendary godly palace that would remain standing in eternity and only existed in legends. The peace of the Heavenly Academy was instantly broken. In its place was a suffocating suppression. "Here they are." Vice Academy Master Xiao pointed at the sky in horror and said, "They are here. I saw them in the sky relic. They were enemies of the ancient immortals." "Hurry, Vice Academy Master Zhang, Elder Yu, evacuate the disciples now." Facing the danger, Xuanhuan remained calm and ordered with a deep voice. At this moment, many people stood under the gloomy and chilly sky and almost fell to their knees under this suppression that was greater than heavenly power. The spiritual beasts that the Heavenly Academy raised hid in their dens and shivered. The disciples of the Heavenly Academy and the geniuses of this world all looked up at the sky. They felt as helpless as the ancient immortals when they faced the end of the world. No one knew if the palace hovering in the high sky was real or just a shadow. Suddenly, a voice came out of it. "I'm the Vanguard Battle General under the Taiyui God Lord. Today, we'll give you the gift of destruction." All the people stared at the sky above the Heavenly Academy in shock. The voice sounded ridiculously arrogant, but no one dared to laugh. Standing under the sky, everyone felt as tiny as a lowly ant. "The godly army of our clan will come soon. However, my seniors intend to give you some time to do some futile resistance. 3 months later, you will be erased from this place. Since we don't accept surrender, you can fight to the death and please the lords with your pathetic strength." According to the legends, in the prehistoric times, the spiritual state had a civilization which was so prosperous and advanced that it was unimaginable to the current world. The cultivators at that time could even move mountains and fill oceans with ease. The best of them could even pass through tribulations and ascend to the legendary upper realm, becoming immortals and living for eternity. However, no one knew why the legendary civilization suddenly vanished with its many powerful spiritual spells and techniques. Also, the legendary path leading to heaven had been sealed as a result. From that moment on, no one on the spiritual state could ascend. If not for the evidence of that civilization discovered by the ancient families with great inheritances, this history would have been lost in the long river of time and completely forgotten by this world and the people who lived in it. However, Some people could never erase that memory from their minds. The tall figure engulfed in his black robe slowly took out an ancient jade which had turned a bit yellow due to the passage of time. He reached out his right hand that was withered and slightly distorted, looking like the claws of a bird. A trace of gloomy dark red light was emitted from the inside of the black cloak. "How many thousand years have passed?" he asked as if his brain had become rusty with time. On the body of his sword was engraved two extremely complicated and ancient characters, Luotan. If people of the ancient families at the spiritual state could see the characters, they would recognize that these characters were similar to those in the Luotan celestial relic, the relic that was the most destroyed. "It's not time to be reminiscent," the cold shadow in the sky said with chilliness. The ancient invaders came again. His voice turned gloomier, oozing an unusual coldness that never appeared before. The other voice was filled with complicated emotions. "The appearance of that shop disturbed our plan of crossing the bitter ocean and reaching the other shore. I'm afraid that we can't get away now." Chapter 546. Mr. Fang's competition will be cancelled. In the huge palace, the man who wore the set of fancy silver armor and had two strange golden patterns between his brows inhaled the fragrance of the nectar in his cup with an intoxicated expression. "Since this trip is so boring, why don't we create some entertainment? It will be fun to watch these backward, ignorant barbarians struggle in despair, right? Should we inform the other lords?" the white-robed man with the humble expression asked. The silver-armored man swirled the wine cup in his hand with enjoyment and didn't reply. The man with the humble expression seemed to understand something, and he bowed and backed out with his head lowered. Meanwhile, in the cottage where the influential people had been talking about the broadcast of the esports competition, Vice Academy Master Xiao looked at Gatini with a pale face as he asked, "What should we do now?" "Don't panic," the middle-aged woman of the Kinkiu family said in a cold voice, "we can always find a way to deal with problems. You guys haven't been to the Sky Relic and don't know their power." Vice Academy Master Xiao said in conviction, "We are mortals, how can we face them?" Although he had learned a small ice spell in the shop, but the four Grand Masters and the other masters in the game are indeed powerful. But they can't come out of the game. The stuff in StarCraft is also powerful. It would be great if I can have a carrier. I wouldn't be feeling this way. But who has such things in the real world? Vice Academy Master Xiao was desperate and frustrated. After all, the stuff in the shop only existed in the games and the virtual reality worlds, but their enemies had arrived at their door. However, Gatinian felt differently compared to Vice Academy Master Xiao after the incident with the Nangong family. Although their current enemies were much more powerful than Nangong family, he still had a sliver of hope. Besides, the enemies told them that the battle wouldn't come until 3 months later. "Don't panic." Having experienced many crises, Gatina said, "We must keep it a secret and don't cause panic among the cultivators. We still have time to prepare for it." In reality, it was impossible to keep this a secret from the ordinary cultivators. It was a heavy blow to many civilian warriors and independent cultivators who had registered for the first worldwide esports competition. In the Geocity shop, old Liang, a warrior wearing a black warrior suit, asked Liang Shi in a low voice, "Did you hear that the spiritual state is facing an unprecedented disaster which might even spread to our deserted sea realm in the short term?" He asked cautiously, "Will the #1 worldwide Martial Dao conference be affected by this crisis? Do you think that this Martial Dao conference will be cancelled due to the issue in the spiritual state?" For the civilian warriors, regardless of how hard they worked in the real world, they were no match for the geniuses from the big families due to their lack of resources, poor backgrounds, and weak talents. But now, in Dungeon Fighter Online and StarCraft, everyone was on the same starting line, and no one had outside aid. As long as they worked hard, they wouldn't lag behind so much that they couldn't see the top players. In the games, they seemed to have relived their lives on the battlefields in StarCraft and on the arid continent. A young man who was in his 30s and was wearing a simple grey warrior robe nodded at them while walking past them. Then, he entered the dojo again. On the screen, There was a male fighter with good equipment, and his ranking the dojo division system was an eye-catching, supreme, 9. Old Fu went to the dojo again. Liangshi asked in a low voice. Yeah, recently, he has been spending about 8 hours a day in the dojo. I guess he fights at least 100 matches a day. Their warrior wearing the black warrior suit said, you know Old Fu's strength. During the individual competition of Diablo, Fu Jiang was the paladin player who had battled his way up in the individual competition of Diablo but backed out of the competition in the last round. Their warrior wearing the black warrior suit said, I'm afraid that he doesn't know about the crisis in the spiritual state yet. If the competition is cancelled due to the crisis, his efforts will be all wasted. I heard that the cultivators in the spiritual state are preparing for war and have no time for the competition. Another cultivator said, for most of the civilian warriors and independent cultivators, the tangible rewards of the competition were not important. They valued this rare opportunity where they could get on the same stage and have fair battles with the lofty geniuses of the big families who they could only look up to in normal situations. Well, I just want to go to the arena and take a look. After all, I've never gone out of this city, in the half-city shop. A bright-looking young man who looked to be less than 20 years old replied. His character in the game was a lazy-looking gunner with a twig dangling between his lips. After replying with a message on QQ, he immediately plunged into the matches in the dojo. Gunners were survivors in a chaotic and lawless area in Empyrean. In that place, they could encounter enemies any moment and must draw out their guns as fast as they could to kill the enemies. To survive when they didn't have guns, they had strengthened their hand-to-hand combat skills and thus created a combat style which combined the use of weapons and combat skills. These special gunners were called rangers. In the game, this young man used both combat skills and his various weapons with proficiency, and he killed a blade master who was about to use an awakening skill with a kick. After opening his game interface, he saw that he had more than 3,000 matches on the record. When he walked out of the dojo, he saw the icon of QQ lighting up on his interface. What's going on? He opened QQ, and anger, loss, and other complicated emotions appeared on his face. The shop in the spiritual state is almost empty. The F1 World Championship might be cancelled as a result. Many players in the shops had been busy preparing for the competition, and no one had expected that things would take such a turn. In the Yuanyang City shop, there weren't as many players as before. It even looked a little empty while the players dwindled. Between obtaining strength and preserving their lives, most people chose the latter. Even though the second option wasn't so reliable either. Maybe I can leave here and find a place that the others won't find. After a while, this might pass. Many small cultivators harbored such thoughts. Facing such a huge crisis, everyone in the cultivation world at the spiritual state became anxious. It seemed like Mr. Fang's #1 worldwide martial Dao conference might end before it even began. Chapter 547, My Loss, Your Gain. In the huge godly palace, the silver-armored man was still sipping wine lazily. He looked like an elegant aristocrat who was calm and relaxed. He was listening to the reports from his subordinates. What are the natives doing now? Are they running around aimlessly like panicking ants? The white-robed man bowed to him and said respectfully, My lord, as you predicted, these people are all fearful, and some of them are getting ready to run to remote places. Their so-called big cities are in shambles. The big families and forces are thinking hard to find ways to survive and continue their futile struggles. A series of wild laughter erupted in the room. Boss. La Jiang Xiaoyu had just come back from school and was about to pull Mr. Fang to play Dungeon Fighter Online with her. However, she was surprised to see he was sound asleep with his head on the desk. Boo, SS. She was furious. Everyone is talking about the imminent catastrophe that is about to overtake spiritual state, and there are fewer and fewer customers in the shop. However, the damn shop owner is so carefree that he fell asleep. Mr. Fang opened his eyes groggily. On his screen were rows of videos of live streams, but him falling asleep made him look like a lazy good-for-nothing. "Ah, what are you yelling about?" Mr. Fang glanced at the screen and immediately sat up. "I almost forgot my main work." "Boss, why are you collecting these live streams recently?" Tilting her head, Jiang Xiaoyu was confused as she stared at the strange things on the screen that Fang Chi was working on. "You don't understand," Mr. Fang said. "This is called promotional cinematic trailers. It's a must-have for all esports competitions." But seeing Jiang Xiaoyu and the people behind her such as Liu Lanmuo and Bai looking toward his screen, he immediately turned it off and said, "You're not supposed to see it now." "So mysterious." With a snort, Jiang Xiaoyu said in disapproval, "Look around you. There are only a few players in the shop. If this continues, you'll have to close the shop." Jiang Xiaoyu snorted again and sat down beside him in a huff. Then, she entered the game, ignoring Mr. Fang. "We have fewer customers?" Mr. Fang looked around. Sure enough, people usually had to wait in line to get a computer, but the shop wasn't full at the moment even though it was the peak time of the day. Many people's profile pictures flashed on his QQ. Su Tanji asked, "Sir, is the F1 World Championships still going to happen or not?" Liang Shi asked, "Sir, I heard that the people of the spiritual state are under great pressure. Is it true? Does it mean that the #1 worldwide Martial Dao conference will be cancelled? The cultivation world of the spiritual state is on the verge of destruction. Why would they go to the internet cafe at this hour?" Some people sent some disheartening and negative comments in the group. Lately, Gatinian and the other high-level people in the cultivation world of the spiritual state were busy making plans and hadn't shown up for a few days. Since their voices were missing, and they didn't make any clear statements, more uncertainty appeared in the cultivation world. If not for the efforts of the elders of the ancient families who tried to suppress the rumors, the whole cultivation world would have fallen into chaos. The disciples of the big families didn't venture out of their homes. Some timid independent cultivators had begun packing up, ready to flee. "Cancelled?" Nonplussed, Mr. Fang replied, "The #1 worldwide Martial Dao conference will be held as planned." "What? You'll hold the competition in such a situation? Is the shop owner crazy?" Xuzi was an authentic independent cultivator in the spiritual state. Almost all independent cultivators didn't have a fixed living place and would go wherever it was beneficial for them and avoided trouble, which was the law of survival that was engraved in their bones. Any independent cultivator who had survived on this land was an experienced person, and when and how to find a safer place was a part of their survival skills that people like him memorized in their heads. At this moment, he was packing in full in Yuanyang City, planning to leave the city today. Regardless of how the war might end, he would only become a victim if he stayed. As for games and that small shop, if it could survive the war, he could come back and visit it after the war. After packing, he glanced around at his empty room and then looked at the communication jade in his hand. This new communication jade had cost him a small fortune and he had downloaded the shop's mobile QQ app on it. Ding! "You have a new message." A strange message suddenly popped up on QQ. He clicked it open subconsciously. "Welcome F1 World Championship. Rewards for returning heroes. Receive gifts by logging in." His eyes almost popped out of his eye sockets when he saw the gifts. Life tokens, Black Diamond membership, 1 free defensive equipment mini pot for the corresponding level each day. TL note. Same thing as loot boxes. Plus 10 equipment reinforcement coupons for no more than 5 crystals. My goodness. He put his hands on his face and yelled, "Crazy. The shop owner will lose so much money." Plus 10 reinforcement coupons. One such coupon can trade for a top-level spiritual artifact. We can buy it for only 5 crystals in the game now. No, I've got to go online and see. Xuzi thought. But then he hesitated. Isn't it too dangerous for me to stay still here? He felt like his brain had turned blank. When he thought that he could buy plus 10 reinforcement coupons, he decided to take the risk. I can leave right after getting the reinforcement coupon. With gritted teeth, he hurried to the shop and logged into the game. Sure enough, he saw a new option on the game interface for claiming gifts. He immediately claimed the gifts. You obtain Black Diamond membership for 1 day. Ha 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 ha. I can indeed get a free Black Diamond membership. Xuzi laughed and glanced around as if he were afraid that someone would take it from him. He was about to get offline and leave when he saw something. On the inference, it stated that the players could get more gifts the longer they stayed in the game. I can have 3 free defensive equipment mini-pots after 10 minutes? He hesitated. Then, I'll play for 10 more minutes. Oh, I'll see how to buy the plus 10 reinforcement coupons. Mysterious gift bag. Do I need to buy this? With a frown, he read the description of this mysterious gift bag. It seemed like there were 14 potential rewards in the bag, and the players could buy one each day with different items in them. Even with the worst luck, he could certainly buy a plus 10 reinforcement coupon in 14 days. 14 days. It will only cost dozens of crystals. He didn't believe that the shop would be so generous that players could buy a plus 10 reinforcement coupon with a few crystals. After reading this message, he found that it was more believable. Dozens of crystals were a price that he could accept. Should I play for a few more days? He decided that he would leave after he got the reinforcement coupon. Meanwhile, in the Godly Palace Lord Vanguard. General, you seem to be in a good mood. A lazy voice came from outside the palace. An exotic beauty walked in. She wore a set of black body-fitting leather armor and had long, curly golden hair. She also had 2 golden patterns between her brows. She walked like a lazy cat, elegant and silent. If she hadn't spoken, no one would have noticed that she had walked in. Ha 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 ha. A series of laughter came from the room. I find it interesting to watch the ants struggle before death. I wonder if they know that all their efforts are futile. Isn't it more interesting to watch them struggle in vain and try to hold on? The woman smirked and said, then. The man waved his hand, and the image of a huge city appeared before them. Let's watch how these ants struggle. The scene before them changed into a prosperous ancient city. It was Xuanhuan City. They saw large groups of cultivators and warriors. Let's go. Hurry to the shop. We can get gifts after logging in. We can get a Black Diamond membership and plus 10 reinforcement coupons. We're rich. The shop owner is actually giving out free reinforcement coupons. Let's go and get them. Ha 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 ha. Hurry, don't let the others get ahead of us. In the crowd, 2 figures hidden in black robes whispered to each other. The people in the palace watched the scene in a daze, and they were at a loss for words. They were stupefied. Chapter 548. All masters with foresight in the world gather here. Crack. The sounds of a wine cup being shattered came from the grand hall. The silver-armored man turned livid. The happy scene vanished before his eyes. We are clearly invaders, and we have come here and gave them the ultimatum. Our ancestors have established dominance many years ago already. How come have these people totally forgotten the lesson from the ancient times? The people on the screen celebrated so cheerfully as if they had won a 5 million crystal lottery. They didn't look desperate at all. Please calm down, my lord. The white-robed man tried to calm him down. These natives don't know our great power. He thought for a long while to organize his words and continued. They are only a group of mortals and, these ants don't know your greatness or the feats of the lords. He stammered and stuttered, making others feel like he couldn't BS anymore. Finally, he choked out the words with a reddened face. When the heaven-hiding palace lands, we will show these ants our ultimate strength. I'm sure that these ants will be so scared that they will beg for mercy. The seductive woman squinted her eyes and said with a charming but cold smile, I saw them and found that these ants are indeed ignorant. In my opinion, we must be patient and shock them when the time comes, letting them know how ignorant they are. The white-robed man nodded respectfully and said, Miss Jessica is right. As the ants usually say, ants float on the vast ocean. I'm sure that they will have a direct experience of this saying by then. Good. This plan sounds good. Let's do it. The silver-armored man made the decision. That so-called Origins Internet Club is a stupid and ignorant mortal shop. How dare it mess with my plans? When the time comes, Lord Vanguard General, you can show your godly power in front of that shop in person. It's just a tiny shop after all. Ha 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 ha. A series of laughter resonated in the grand hall. Why are you guys so happy? Some people, male and female, walked in. Soon, more laughter came from the grand hall. When the time comes, they will witness the great power of our clan. These lowly creatures will know how ignorant they have been. They were very cheerful. With his spirits lifted, the silver-armored man poured himself another cup of wine and sipped it with enjoyment. Meanwhile, in Mr. Fang's internet club the empty Xuanhuan city shop gradually became bustling with crowds again. The cultivators of other cities noticed the change as well. They had heard the rumor that the cultivation world would be struck with a catastrophe, and many people had fled from the cities. But now, it seemed that people were swarming into Xuanhuan city as if their lives depended on it. The unusual behavior of these cultivators grabbed the attention of the independent cultivators and ordinary warriors who were planning to flee. It was as eye-catching as a flame in the night. Do they know something that we don't? Independent Immortal Pavilion in Xuanhuan City. The Independent Immortal Pavilion had been nearly empty lately, but now it was bustling with independent cultivators from all places. The people of big families and factions in other cities all gathered here. Waiter, get me a pound of spirit turtle meat and a pot of 1,000-year-old Huadiao wine. A dark-skinned, ordinary-looking young man who was wearing a green robe walked into the shop. At this moment, all the tables were taken. He cupped his hands at 3 independent cultivators and pointed at the vacant seat at their square table before asking, "Can I sit with you guys?" Seeing the question in their eyes, he immediately introduced himself. "I'm Han from the small Yan country in the south." Han. An independent cultivator laughed and said, "Young man, you are named after the famous independent immortal from 2000 years ago? Do you know how to use the green light godly blade sword technique? With this name, aren't you afraid of being beaten when you're out?" That man said as he shook his head, "Suit yourself." The green-robed young man's face twitched. The independent cultivators talked among themselves. One of them said in a low voice, "Did you know that the cultivators all came to Xuanhuan City for a treasure?" "What treasure?" "They would risk their lives for a treasure." "You can't put it that way." "It's said that the catastrophe of the spiritual state won't come until 3 months later, but obtaining this treasure only takes about 10 days. People can leave after getting this treasure." "Then, do you know what this treasure really is?" "One treasure." "How come I heard that there are many treasures?" "Many treasures? I heard that there is only 1 + 10 reinforcement coupon." "No, I heard that there are black diamond membership, life tokens, and mini pots." The young man named Han listened to their conversation in a daze. "I've traveled around the world for years." "How come? I've never heard of such a treasure before." At this moment, a 7-colored auspicious cloud floated to the sky outside Xuanhuan City. Celestial light and mist existed above the colorful cloud, and there was also a white-clothed woman. Her snow-white skin, jade-like bones, wind-like belt, and waterfall-like, fluttering hair made her look like a true immortal. She was accompanied by a green-clothed girl who looked extremely cute with jade-like features and a flower basket in her hand. "Master, why are you coming to the mortal world after staying on 7 Cent Mountain for so many years?" "The center star has dimmed, and I'm afraid that a catastrophe will strike the cultivation world of the spiritual state." The white-clothed woman shook her head and sighed slightly. "I've calculated this tribulation in my life, and it's not right for me to escape from it. That isn't the mentality that we cultivators should have. If I'm right with my calculations, the tribulation should happen here. If I can do something to help the situation on the spiritual state, my 1,000 years of cultivation wouldn't have gone to waste. I'll take you to visit some grand masters in this place." While she spoke, she landed from the high sky. "Who is she?" "She looks like a fairy descending into the mortal world from heaven." "Dearest friends." The woman greeted the people around them and asked, "I saw that you are all hurrying toward the city. I wonder if there are some grandmasters living in the city. Can you tell us so that my disciple and I can visit them too? Grandmasters? The people looked at each other in bafflement. Yes, there's one. Mr. Fang of Origins Internet Club is a grandmaster. It's said that his cultivation strength is even greater than that of Gatinu, the Academy Master of the Heavenly Academy. Chapter 549. Sir, a fairy is looking for you. Mr. Fang's T-Cat virtual item trading net was created during the time of the Legend of Mewtwo, and it was for people to trade virtual items with it. TL note: T-Cat is actually Tmall in real life. Tmall is a Chinese language website for business-to-consumer online retail, spun off from Taobao, operated in China by the Alibaba Group. After the teleportation ray was built, some people began to try to trade real objects. The UI Taoist Alliance was one of them. The UI Taoist Alliance was the force that had spent the longest time on the development of all kinds of magic spells and products of modern technology. By now, they had developed product including magic installation items, guns, new communication jades, and crystal cars. However, even though these new spiritual artifacts were top quality, most cultivators were not familiar with this trading method and thus few people bought them. Finished finally. Mr. Fang stretched as he looked at his screen. The opening cinematics of this competition was almost done. In fact, he had done the editing and the framework, and he left the rest to the system. After all, everything that the system produced was top quality, and Fang Chi didn't need to worry about the final result. Ignoring Jiang Xiaoyu's protests, Fang Chi went upstairs to sleep. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, someone knocked, and then Li Xina's voice came from outside. Sir, a fairy named King Yan from the Color Cloud Cave of 7 Cent Mountain is here, and she is looking for you. What fairy? Color Cloud Cave? I've never heard of it before. While yawning, Mr. Fang said, I'm busy. I don't want to meet fairies. Then, he laid down on his bed and fell asleep instantly. Boss, Bo. Li Xina was frustrated. She could see the female visitor's celestial presence, which showed that she wasn't an ordinary woman. However, her boss slept during the day and refused to see the visitor with the excuse of being busy. Doesn't he just play games every day? While shaking her head, Li Xina went downstairs. At the entrance of the shop, the fairy-like woman who had snow-white skin and was wearing white clothes was still waiting there with a humble and polite expression on her face. Li Xina had to apologize to her. My boss is busy and can't see you now. She looked embarrassed. It's okay, the woman said mildly. Everyone said that your boss is a grandmaster. I guess he must be very busy dealing with the upcoming catastrophe of the spiritual state. Li Xina was even more embarrassed since she knew that her boss was just sleeping upstairs. She said, if you two have time, you can get online and have tea here in the shop. Hee. 2 more pretty girls came. Before Li Xina could finish, a godly sword hanging on the bamboo stick already spoke. Little girl, if you can't see the shop owner, you can talk to us. It is the same thing. Our sword techniques are only slightly less powerful than the shop owners. Right. We are 2 grandmasters, 2. No, we're grand swords. The other sword said, do you see the other swords beside us? When our elder brothers wake up, they might be even more powerful than the grandmaster shop owner who you want to see. Master. These 2 swords can even talk. Amazing. The green-clothed young girl stared at the swords with widen eyes. Li Xina's pretty face darkened. Don't listen to their nonsense. If boss is here, they don't dare to utter a word. He could conquer so many godly swords. The white-clothed woman exclaimed, he's indeed a grandmaster. From the looks of it, his sword techniques must have reached the peak level. Just slightly more powerful than my immortal hacking sword array. If my big brother comes out, it's hard to say who's stronger. This shop owner is so strong? The green-clothed girl exclaimed in astonishment. Immortal hacking sword array. Can it really hack down immortals? Of course. How come it's dark? Who sneak attacked me? Let me out. Suddenly, 2 black bags were put over the 2 godly swords before the openings were tied. Li Yui turned back and said to the dumbfounded visitors, "Boss told us to do this if the 2 swords begin babbling. Xina, take them to the computers and show them how to get online." Immediately, Li Xina led the way and showed the dumbfounded visitors to the computers. "Master, how come I feel like something is not right in this shop?" the green-clothed girl whispered. To kill time, they followed Li Xina's instructions and clicked randomly on the desktop. "But that sister told us that the spiritual artifacts in the shop are connected with various regions of several continents. I wonder if it's true." Master? At this moment, the green-clothed girl saw her master clicking on a strange icon which looked like a cat's head. "This is our shop's T-Cat virtual item trading net," Li Xina explained while standing behind them. "Besides virtual items, there are many new spiritual artifacts mimicked from the spiritual artifacts in our shop." Soon, Fairy King Yan saw a white spiritual artifact that looking like a jade tablet with the logo of a rotten apple with one bite taken off. "What's this?" Fairy King Yan asked curiously. "This is the new communication jade, and it's the newest version, iPhone 6. "Such a strange name." The green-clothed girl frowned on the side. "Our boss named it," Li Xina explained. "After all, Fang Chi was a stockholder. This communication jade can transmit not only messages but images. I can also use it to chat with people through QQ. Fairy King Yan clicked on the buy button, and the 800 crystals that she had deposited in her membership card almost ran out. "What's this?" Soon, she saw a spiritual artifact that looked like a fancy car. She watched the video beside the car and understood that it was used to move people around in the city. Go and deposit 5,000 crystals in my card." Having not entered the world for a long time, I'm surprised that they have created such an exquisite tool for transportation. Then, she looked at the next item, which was a pair of black-framed sunglasses. Added to the shopping cart. Pistol. Added to the shopping cart. LV storage bag with magic installation. Added to the shopping cart. Magic lipstick. Added to the shopping cart. City-style aristocratic fur coat. Added to the shopping cart. Yawn. While yawning, Mr. Fang finally woke up from his nap and walked downstairs. "Little Xina, who is here to see me?" "Is she still here?" "Yes, she's sitting on a couch in the lounge area." "Really?" Mr. Fang looked over and saw a girl wearing a pair of big sunglasses and playing with her cell phone. She was surrounded by big and small bags, and she had a LV bag on her shoulder. The smartphone in her hand had an eye-catching logo of a rotten apple. A Maserati was parked outside the door. Mr. Fang was at a loss for words. Didn't they say that she is a fairy? Chapter 550, The Fairy Can Sing. Fang Chi's shop was now bustling with crowds, which was a totally different scene from before where the shop was almost empty. The players included disciples from big families and independent cultivators and warriors from different places. While talking about the treasures such as +10 reinforcement coupons and Black Diamond membership, they joined the event called The Return of 8 Million Adventurers in Dungeon Fighter Online. Meanwhile, Mr. Fang was looking at the fairy before him in bafflement. Except for her clothes which showed that she came from this world, everything else shouted that she was a fashionable city girl. Then, Mr. Fang saw a green-clothed girl who was about 15 years old sitting with her. This girl was slurping a bowl of instant noodles and wearing a pair of big sunglasses. Right. She was eating instant noodles while wearing big sunglasses. She looked up, revealing that her lips had become bright red because the soup was too spicy for her. She stared at the ordinary-looking young man who was walking toward her. Mr. Fang scratched his head. After all, the presence of a great beauty was quite daunting. As a professional gamer who was focused on gaming before he traveled through space and time, Mr. Fang wasn't good at talking to beautiful girls. Since he was at a loss for what to do, he turned his eyes to the little girl and said genially, "Little sister, is she your mum?" The people around them suddenly quieted down. "She's my master," the little girl said with her mouth full of noodles. Then, She snorted and said, "At merely the King Warrior realm, you can stop thinking of speaking to her." Mr. Fang's face darkened. He was looked down upon by a little girl. How come little girls nowadays are so sharp-tongued, unwilling to be looked down at? Fang Chi sat down beside her and asked, "Little girl, are you here waiting for someone?" "Right," the green-clothed girl said smugly, "my master and I are waiting for a very powerful senior who is said to have defeated even Gtinian, the old academy master of the Heavenly Academy." After all, the incident where Mr. Fang crushed Academy Master Gu in StarCraft had spread to every corner. Mr. Fang's face twitched. "He's so powerful?" "Yeah," the little girl said in exaggeration. "This senior master is the owner of this shop. It's said that he can defeat demons with one hand, kill the mechanical bull with eyes closed, is ranked Supreme One in the dojo, and is invincible at commanding Terran Marines." But the green-clothed little girl said, "I don't know what a mechanical bull is." "Anyway, I heard that he is super powerful and can fight 10 king warriors like you!" Mr. Fang froze, and he thought, when did I become so powerful? Tell me more. Is this shop owner good at anything else? He asked immediately. There were a lot of his feats. I heard many things about this master. Zhu Yu thought for a moment and said, "Well, but they are things hard to remember. Let me think. Can he manage the world with his pen and conquer the world with his powerful strength? Something like that. Does he have jade-like features? And is he more handsome than Pan An?" Pan An was a prominent Chinese Fu poet in the Western Jin dynasty. He was well known for his good looks from a young age. Pan An has become the Chinese byword for handsome men. I don't remember this one. Isn't he an old man? Impossible. Mr. Fang said, "We can put this on the list, right?" The little girl patted her forehead. "We can put this on the list. Can you remember more?" "Scummy owner, do you want to play on this map or not?" "Oh, in 1 second." Mr. Fang answered without thinking. "Puh." The little girl who was eating the instant noodles dropped her fork, and it landed on the ground. The great beauty who had been playing with her smartphone looked immediately toward him. Scummy shop owner. He is trying to fool this little girl mercilessly. People whispered among themselves. Despicable. Sir, where's your dignity? Grandmasters are all unique in their way of doing things. Fairy King Yun smiled in embarrassment and tried to smooth things over. Hearing the others' explanations, the little girl finally saw through this scummy shop owner. In her heart, the shop owner had come down from a grandmaster to a scummy shop owner who could only bully old people, Gtinian, and little girls. The little girl turned her head and ignored Fang Chi, furious that he had tricked her to say so many good things about him. On the side, Fairy King Yun told him her intention of the visit. "You mean you want to do your share in the imminent catastrophe of the spiritual state's cultivation world?" "Yes." Fairy King Yun sat up straight and said solemnly, "Although I've stayed in my mountain for a long time, I'm a cultivator of the spiritual state and know that we are intimately interdependent. If the cultivation world vanished from the spiritual state, I and other cultivators in the 7 Cent Mountains would lose our home too." "Oh." Mr. Fang was now having a headache. "But you can't do anything by coming to me." He looked embarrassed. "I'm only the owner of an internet cafe and can only play games. After all, one person can't save the entire cultivation world." It would only work if Mr. Fang could kill all his enemies in one way. That was all that he could do. If there were too many enemies, he couldn't manage them all. Owner of the internet cafe, Fairy King Yun and her disciple, Zhu Yu, looked at him in a daze. "Isn't he a super powerful grandmaster?" "Yeah." Mr. Fang pointed at the posters on the wall and said, "My job is keeping the shop, playing games, and hosting competitions when necessary." There were 2 posters on the wall. On one poster, the Slayers, Mages, Gunners, and other classes in Dungeon Fighter Online gestured in invitation with the words F1 World Championship, recruiting the strongest fighters. The other poster portrayed a battle scene among Terrans, Zerg, and Protoss. The words were fighting for the title of the strongest war commander. "Glory is waiting to you!" Exclamation mark. Fairy King Yun was dumbfounded, and she thought, "You are looking for a commander and also recruiting the strongest fighters. You said that you can't help and don't want to get involved. Who would believe that?" "Sir, didn't you say that you are only organizing 2 competitions?" Fairy King Yun's cold gaze landed on Fang Chi, and she had a strange smile on her face. After looking at the 2 posters, she seemed to have understood something. Although the shop owner didn't say much, his heart is tied to the cultivation world. He is using this method to unite the heroes and brave individuals of the spiritual state. And these awards, I don't know what they are, but I guess they are precious treasures since these brave figures of the spiritual state are eager to win them. "Mr. Fang, I admire your heroic act. I'm on the same level as you." Fairy King Yun bowed her head slightly to him, saying, "I wonder if you can let me participate in this esports competition? I know it's probably too late for me to participate, but if you have any use of me in the competition, I'm happy to help." Mr. Fang thought it was not polite to decline her offer. After a moment of consideration, he asked, "Can you sing?" "I can." She froze for a moment before answering. "Do you want to sing during the opening ceremony? With opening cinematics and official songs, this competition would look very grand."